Christianity were an artifact that you could inspect, at the bottom it would say, made in Asia. Christianity is an Asian religion. It began in Asia, it grew in Asia, and it's from Asia that it eventually spread to all other parts of the world. Although a latecomer to the party, given that Asia had already given birth to countless world religions such as Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Confucianism, Taoism, Zoroastrianism, and so on, Christianity was quite a contender. For instance, not only had people groups in current-day Armenia, Iraq, Iran, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, and Turkey received the message of Christianity, but also people in Afghanistan and India, Saudi Arabia, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Yemen had also accepted it. Before long, even the Emperor of China promoted this new Asian religion. In fact, 1,000 years before pilgrims ever sailed for the Americas. In my work at Thomas Institute, I'm honored to take groups to some of the most interesting places on Earth, and I especially love taking groups to Asia. Groups are always so surprised when we travel to places like Xi'an, China, and see firsthand evidence of Christians living there as early as the 600s. They're equally surprised when we visit museums in Seoul, Korea, showing evidence of Christianity there dating back to the 700s and 800s. And they're also amazed when we travel to places like Kerala, India, spending time with St. Thomas Christians who have been living in South India for at least 1,700 years. Altogether, Asia produced the first known church building, the first New Testament translation, perhaps the first Christian king, the first Christian poets, and even the first Christian nation state. That's quite an accomplishment, and it's not surprising that Christianity was emerging there as the fastest growing of all Asian religions. So, what exactly constitutes Asia? In this session, we'll learn that Christianity was well represented throughout Asia for many centuries. Now, what exactly do I mean when I say Asia? According to the geoschematic descriptions given by the United Nations, Asia is divided into 5 major regions. There is Western Asia, Central Asia, Southern Asia, Eastern Asia, and finally, Southeastern Asia. In general, Western Asia includes what we today call the Middle East and the surrounding areas, and this is where Christianity emerged in the first century. As for Central Asia, this includes many of those countries that end in stan, such as Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Christians were active in this region as early as the 200s. Then we have Southern Asia, which includes places like India. According to tradition, the Apostle Thomas evangelized the south of India, and St. Thomas Christians have been verifiably present in India since at least the 300s, but probably even earlier. Eastern Asia includes historically significant countries like China, Korea, and Japan. We have ample evidence of Christians living in China as early as the 600s, replete with artifacts and buildings and documentary evidence. And finally, we have Southeastern Asia, which includes countries like the Philippines and Indonesia. Most likely, there were not Christians living in those regions until after the 700s. So, are we going to explore all of these regions in depth? Unfortunately, time just does not allow for this. Instead, our goal in these sessions will be to provide a bird's eye view of Christian history from the perspective of geography and time. In this way, we will divide each session based on where Christianity was practiced and when it was practiced. And contrary to popular thought, Christianity is extremely diverse geographically and historically. It's never been a religion confined to one place at one time. Instead, it's been practiced widely and across all time zones. Because there is so much history that occurred in Asia in the first 7 centuries of Christianity, we can't adequately discuss it. In fact, we can't even get close. It would be like trying to remove water from the ocean with a measuring cup. It just can't be done. As such, in our sessions, we're going to have to be selective. Depending on a variety of factors, we'll only focus on one particular area or maybe one particular region. In this way, although there are 5 major world regions of Asia, in this session, we're only going to focus on early Western Asian Christianity from the time period of the 1st century to the 7th century. As it turns out, Christianity in this region dates back to when Jews from the diaspora participated in an annual pilgrimage in the historically significant Western Asian city of Jerusalem in 30 AD. According to the book of Acts, the Spirit of God empowered Jesus' disciples, and about 3,000 people accepted the message of salvation that Peter preached. The location, names, and people in Acts chapter 2, listed in 4 separate groups, corresponded to the 4 points of a compass, beginning in the east and moving counterclockwise. Of the 4 people groups or places mentioned in the book of Acts, 3 are located in the continent of Asia. The first cluster in the east generally refers to a number of people groups east of Jerusalem who lived outside of the Roman Empire. I love taking groups to countries in the former Roman Empire. It's unbelievably impressive to know that whether you're visiting England or Germany or Croatia or Algeria or Jordan or Turkey, you're still in one empire. In and around this region, Christians spread rapidly across present-day southeastern Turkey, Syria, Armenia, Georgia, Iraq, as well as Iran. In the first centuries after Christ, these regions were located within the Persian Empire, or they existed as Asian buffer states and cities in Mesopotamia between the 2 great empires of Rome and Persia. There was the Osrani Empire with its capital in Edessa, the Adiabani Empire with its capital in Arbela, and a scattering of urban centers such as Nisibis and the kingdoms of Armenia and Georgia. It's possible that you've never even heard of these kingdoms and regions, but they were majority Christian places in the first centuries after Christ. In the past, church history focused on Christians in the Roman Empire, but now we know better. And we need to be more honest about its diverse past. Now, according to tradition, the Apostle Thaddeus evangelized this region. And a few generations later, King Abgar VIII, who reigned from 177 to 212 AD, adopted Christianity as an official religion, making the Osrani Empire the first government in world history to embrace Christianity as its state religion. So, next time you watch Jeopardy, watch out for a question just like that. In this line of thought, Christianity likely entered Edessa in the 1st century through Syrian Antioch. Now, if you don't know about Syrian Antioch, it's a really impressive location. Not only is it the place where Christians were first called, it was also the place where Peter served as bishop before becoming bishop of Rome. Syrian Antioch, which is located in current-day Turkey, served as the earliest missional outpost of the Christian church. Within a century, the city of Edessa, located in the Osrani Empire, was replacing Antioch as the center of early Syriac Christianity. This Christian tradition used a dialect of Aramaic, which is the language that Jesus spoke. The church that developed in Edessa, called the Church of the East, still exists today, and I've met with Christians who still speak Syriac, a very ancient language that would have sounded very familiar to Jesus' ears. In fact, Edessa became the most successful missionary church of the earliest centuries of the Christian era, up until the 1st millennium. In Edessa, the Church of the East produced some of the earliest Christian scholars, literary documents, liturgical prayers and chants, hymns, schools, and models of medical work, as well as monastic centers. In addition to Edessa, there were many other small yet important Mesopotamian border cities, as well as kingdoms. most likely you've never heard of them. For instance, the city of Nisibis boasted a famous Christian seminary from the 2nd century called the School of the Persians. At its height, the seminary in Nisibis trained more than 800 students, having educated countless Syriac-speaking Christian leaders throughout Asia. One of its most famous teachers, Ephraim the Syrian, later moved to Edessa with the school in 363. Now, Ephraim wrote hundreds of Christian hymns along with other sermons and biblical commentaries, and his work survives to this day as a lasting testimony of Syriac Christianity. So do yourself a favor and look up some of his writings online. He was a powerful writer and composer. Now, in addition to Nisibis, Christianity thrived in the nearby kingdom of Adiabene, with its headquarters in Arbela. Today, Arbela, now known as Erbil, Iraq, is a large city serving as the capital of the Kurdistan population in Iraq, and it's about 400 miles from Odessa. When you go to these locations in person, it's humbling to realize how little we used to know about their Christian past, but really how extensive their influence was. Now, nearby these smaller kingdoms are two larger ones that continue to have some of the largest Christian percentages per capita of any other modern country. I'm referring to Armenia and Georgia. To this day, these countries boast Christian populations of way more than 90%, and they're also beautiful countries with an impressive past. In short, Christianity completely transformed these twin countries in the Caucasus Mountains. Both Armenia and Georgia adopted Christianity as their state religion in the 300s. Both created and standardized their forms of writing, and both began to use this new writing in earnest to translate the Bible, to compose hymns, and to publish various treatises. An ancient tradition holds that the apostles Thaddeus and Bartholomew introduced Christianity to Armenia in the 1st century. However, the official endorsement of Armenian Christianity involves the stories of King Tiridates III as well as St. Gregory. The official embrace of Christianity as the state religion of Armenia occurred all the way back in 301, with nearby Georgia making Christianity its state religion about 3 decades later. Christianity forever changed Armenia. With royal and military support, St. Gregory destroyed pagan temples, created schools, built churches, and introduced reforms in family life. Monasticism, likely through Syrian influence, impacted early Armenian Christianity like it did the rest of early worldwide Christianity. And the fact that we have Bibles, that we have so many traditions and customs preserved, is thanks to movements like monasticism. Now, the last center of early Christianity in Mesopotamia largely includes modern Iran and Iraq. Despite the Persian Empire's tight border, Christian merchants and missionaries traveling the Silk Road spread the message of Jesus Christ to Iran and Iraq by the 2nd century, but probably even earlier. There, Christianity flourished. The Jewish diaspora likely provided the earliest Christian converts, but local residents also converted. The city of Seleucia Ctesiphon, originally twin cities on opposite sides of the Tigris River and the capital of the Persian Empire, became the leading diocese or bishopric of the Church of the East by the 200s. Now, Christians experienced intense persecution in Iran and Iraq in the early 300s due to a resurrection of the ancient Persian religion of Zoroastrianism. The Shah of Persia, Shapur II, decimated Christians. A Persian decree in the 300s illustrates the perceived differences between Christianity and the state religion of Zoroastrianism. Here is an excerpt from this time period. The Christians destroy our holy teachings and teach men to serve one God and not to honor the sun or fire. They teach them too to defile water by their ablutions, to refrain from marriage and the procreation of children, and to refuse to go out to war with the King of Kings, the leader of the Persian kingdom. They have no scruple about the slaughter and eating of animals. They bury the corpses of men in the earth, and attribute the origin of snakes and creeping things to a good God. They despise many servants of the king and teach witchcraft. This is a really interesting quote about how the early Iranians perceived Christians. Coupled with Christianity's clear differences with the state religion of the Persian Empire were the growing ties with the state religion of the Roman Empire, Christianity. Regrettably, the Roman Empire's adoption of Christianity in the 300s endangered Christians in the Persian Empire, since its state leaders suspected Persian Christians of conspiracy with Roman ones, stemming a centuries-long rivalry between these two superpowers. This happened quite a bit in the history of Christianity. The bottom line is that the different traditions within Christianity didn't see eye to eye, and when other kingdoms that were not majority Christian regions were involved, it could get messy. In Iran, Christians were widespread in the first several hundred years after Christ, despite the persecution that they suffered under Zoroastrian religious and cultural views. However, the Christian religion has persisted to this day, and there's no doubt that Iranian Christianity is probably around 1900 years old. And the same can be said of Iraq, which was part of the same empire. As we uncover more stories about the people, the artifacts, and the places that shaped this tradition, we'll gain a richer understanding of Christianity's rich Asian past. To bring this session to a close, it's important to understand that what I'm trying to indicate is that widespread ethnic, linguistic, and geographic diversity characterized early Asian Christianity. In different degrees, Christianity existed from early times in each of the geoschematic designations of what we call current-day Asia. And as you remember, that includes Eastern, Central, Southern, Southeastern, as well as Western Asia. Today, as in the past, countless ethnic groups who speak a variety of languages live in these regions. With such diversity, it's not surprising that Asian Christianity experienced regular theological controversies, not including the countless heterodox or unorthodox theologies taught from the beginning of the church. Asian Christianity from the time of Pentecost to the rise of Islam in the 600s splits into three major clusters: Eastern Orthodox, Church of the East, and Oriental Orthodox. Now, I don't want to burden you with too many details about all of the theological and geographic differences among these groups, but here's a simple chart with some details. The vast differences existing among these churches force us to recognize the complexity of early Asian Christianity, and the subsequent sessions narrating the development of worldwide Christianity will reveal the test of unity the church experienced. That's because what began in Asia soon spread to the entire known world.